On tonight's Gwinnett Prep Rally, it's the final week of the regular season as teams get ready for the state playoffs. In Region 8, there was plenty on the line as the Grayson and Archer girls squared off for the number 4 seed in Region 8. The Grayson boys have already clinched their playoff spot, but wanted to end the season with a victory over Archer. The Collins Hill girls and boys stepped out of region as they welcomed a pair of North Bolton Powers to Suwanee, and both contests came down to a photo finish. We have all the big shots and clutch saves on this edition of GPR, and it starts right now.
For more than 15 years, your source for Gwinnett County sports is Gwinnett Prep Rally.
Hello again and welcome to your county's original high school sports television program. This is Gwinnett Prep Rally now in its 19th season, and we can be seen right here on GCPS TV for the entire 2011-2012 school year. I'm Todd Klein alongside Will Hammett from the Gwinnett Daily Post. And Will, the soccer state playoffs get started this week, so which teams can we expect to make a deep run towards a state title?
I think at the 5A level, you have to look at the Brookwood boys and the Collins Hill boys as being two very potent teams. I think the Mill Creek boys could make a pretty nice deep run there. On the girls' side, I think it's going to be one of the Region 7 power teams. I think any of the teams that made the playoffs out of Region 7 could make a run at a championship. And then at the AA level, you really have to look at both GAC teams as being state title favorites.
Well, let's get right to the highlights. And the final week of the regular season provided some interesting non-region matchups, beginning with the Collins Hill boys playing host to Milton, a tough tune-up matchup before the state playoffs. GPR's Nathan Shutter has all the action from Suwanee.
Collins Hill squaring off against Milton in the final game of the regular season. Collins Hill with an early opportunity. Zach Jones crosses it into the box. Amiri Abraham gets ahead on it, but his effort is off the mark. Milton with a good chance at the other end. The cross is sent into the box. Braulio Estrada gets ahead on it, but Jackson Taylor is there for the save. Derek Creviston on the free kick, but his shot goes just a bit high and out of play. Collins Hill back on the attack. Emmanuel Raji carves up the Milton defense and floats across into the box. Khalil Stewart with a good header, but Santiago Casido comes up with a great save to keep the game scoreless at the break. Second half, Estrada with a long free kick into the box. The ball is headed forward for Slade Gottlieb, but Ben Malcolm gets a hand on it and clears the ball from danger. Collins Hill looking to break the deadlock. Nomis Sisic sends the ball forward for Raji. He gets a good shot off, but it's just wide of the post. Milton with a free kick. Gottlieb with a strong kick that makes it all the way to the keeper, and Nick Nelson does everything he can to keep the ball from crossing the line, and the score remains 0-0, so we head to overtime. Milton with a good chance in OT. Slade Gottlieb sends the cross in, and Derek Creviston gets ahead on it, but Jackson Taylor makes the diving stop. Collins Hill would have their own opportunities. Zach Jones sends the cross to the back post. Amiri Abraham is there for the header, but his shot goes wide of the target, so we go to the shootout. In the shootout, Slade Gottlieb, Brandon Howe, Keller Street, and Derek Creviston would all connect on their attempts for Milton, and Connor Miskell would come up with the big stop on Eli Carrasco as Milton knocks off Collins Hill by a final of 1-0.
Well, obviously this is just a tune-up type of game, but is there any residual effect from losing a game like this as you get ready for the playoffs?
I think Collins Hill will bounce back pretty good. They're an experienced playoff team. They know what it takes when it gets down to that round. It's just this is what it was, a nice tune-up late in the regular season. They played a very close defensive battle like they're going to see in the playoffs. And I think they showed a lot of stuff on the defensive side, played well, and certainly had some opportunities on the offensive end that they could have finished off.
And I feel like we talk about Collins Hill, we talk a lot about the offensive side. Like you said, a 0-0 draw during regulation. Talk about this Collins Hill defense, and obviously because you think they'll make a deep playoff run, you think that defense is more than stout enough to get the Eagles back to a state title.
Yeah, you're going to be in a lot of low-scoring games in the playoffs. You want your defense to stand up. I think Collins Hill's got a solid group back there. I think it starts with the goalkeeper, Jackson Taylor. He's a freshman starter on their state championship team. He's a junior now. He's played a lot of minutes there in goal. He's very experienced, and he's really a leader there in the back for them, and I look for him to be a big part of their success in the postseason.
Well, back to the highlights, and while the Grayson boys had already locked up their spot in the state playoffs, they still wanted to finish the season on a positive note against region rival Archer. GPR's Kirk Rogers has more.
Archer plays host to the Grayson Rams in a very tough matchup. Early on, John Connor looks to test out senior goalkeeper David Mamadou, but Mamadou is up for the challenge. Connor has another clean look and gets a shot off, but once again, Mamadou is there for the save, and we're still scoreless. Grayson team captain Adam Cramo tries his luck against Mamadou, and the keeper is there once again for the stop. Then in the 17th minute, Luke Siegman finds Cramo alone in the middle of the box, and Mamadou can't get to this one, and the Rams have a 1-0 lead. Going the other way, Zach Wackles has a chance to tie it up, gets his shot past the keeper, but is just inches off the mark as this one bounces off the post. Now trying to extend the Ram lead, Ryan Sanders sends a shot inside the box, but Mamadou makes another great save to keep this a one-score game. On the other end, David Solano tries to get on the board in the last match of his Archer career, but misses just wide right. And still trailing by 1, Kyle Tate feeds it inside to Jamie Zambrano, but Callan Rhodes goes up for the save and preserves the Ram lead going into halftime. In the second half, Cramo, the 2011 All-County forward, has some fancy footwork and then goes long distance, and Mamadou can't knock it down, and the Rams now have some insurance and a 2-0 lead. Moments later, off a Grayson corner kick, Matt McGlamory is able to head it in past Mamadou, and the Rams have blown this one open 3-0. Archer would have one last chance to get on the board, but on this Trenton Whiteley attempt, Callan Rhodes would make the stop and preserve the shutout as Grayson wins 3-0.
Well, I guess we're talking about tune-ups, Will, and this is a nice tune-up for Grayson to get ready for the playoffs. Nice little win over Archer.
Yeah, they really delivered in this game. Maybe an underrated team in the region. They're a very talented team. They've got a lot of solid players over there at Grayson. I think they've had a great season so far. It's going to get tough here in the playoffs. It's going to be tough for them in the first round to beat Collinsville, but I really think the Rams have a lot of talent, and they built quite a successful season.
Time now to recap other boys soccer action from this past week. It's brought to you by Tommy Lee Carpets, and we begin with the Buford Wolves.
Yeah, Buford had a great season. They just played in a very, very difficult region, easily the best region in AA, maybe the most loaded region in the state for soccer. So many good teams, and for Buford to miss the playoffs it's tough to take, because this is an exceptional soccer team that could have done a lot of things in the state tournament. Coach Manders does a great job up there. Just hated to see their season end prematurely, because this is a state playoff type team.
Well, we move over or down to Class A and Wesleyan, which had a big win over Pinecrest.
Yeah, they also play in a tough spot, but they're an exceptional team. They've done great things this season. Been a little bit of a surprise. I didn't know they were going to be this good, but definitely in the playoffs now, and they can make some noise. They have a tough test in the first round against Walker, but they really beat some good teams this season, showed they can compete with some of the better teams in the state.
And finally, talking about this GAC team, Will, all season you've been talking about this team is really the team to beat for a state championship.
Yeah, there's still a lot of talent over there at GAC. They expect to win when the postseason comes around. I think their eye is always on the state championship. You can always expect a deep run out of this team, and they have the talent to do it this year. I think have a lot of offensive playmakers, and they have some leaders there on the defense who can get it done.
Will, talking about GAC, I know you're high on them, but as they get ready for the playoffs, is there any one area they need to guard against having a letdown?
I think they got to stay stout on defense. They can't build deficits for themselves early in games. I think they've shown a tendency to maybe give up some goals on defense that they shouldn't have. They really have to tighten it up back there and not build a deficit that offense can't overcome in the postseason.
And then going back to Wesleyan, talking about, like you said, a great season for them, maybe surprised you a little bit. What would they have to do to knock off a very talented Walker squad in the first round?
It's going to be a tough test, but like I said, they've played some good teams. Wesleyan's played GAC and really been tested at some of the top programs around. So I don't think they're going to be intimidated. I think it's a matter of, much like GAC, you don't want to get behind a goal against a team like that and be chasing all game long. If they can get a goal early and get ahead, you never know what can happen.
Well, let's turn our attention to the girls and a regular season finale with playoff implications as Archer and Grayson faced off with the final playoff spot in Region 8 going to the winner. Kirk Rogers has more.
The number 4 seed in the region is up for grabs as Grayson takes on Archer. Early on, senior forward Brittany Miller tries to put a shot in, and Rachel Pfeiffer comes up with a stop, and we remain scoreless. Just minutes later, an Alexa Webb corner kick goes inside the box, and Pfeiffer knocks it down, but Ashley Griffin then comes up with the attempt. Katarina Arant somehow ends up with a stop, and Archer is able to clear this Rams scoring opportunity. Going the other way, and Megan Chambers-Wilson is driving, but pushes just a step too far, and this drive is killed by Savannah Selby, and we're still tied up. Off of a Tigers corner kick, Shelby Plone tries to head it in, but Caddy Pickelsheimer gets the stop, and this ball is going the other way. From Allison Dickinson, Josie Ouellette gets a shot on goal, but Pfeiffer is there for the save, and just minutes later, Ouellette tests Pfeiffer once again, and Pfeiffer comes up huge, and we take a 0-0 score into the half. Back from the break, Grayson is driving, and Ashley Griffin is all alone at the top of the box, and the senior drills it past Pfeiffer, and the Lady Rams have a 1-0 lead in the 50th minute. Just seconds later, Brittany Miller fields a pass and sets up where her defender can't stop her, puts a shot over Pfeiffer's head, and in the span of 45 seconds, this has become a 2-0 ball game. Now trying to get back on the board, Archer has a throw-in, and Chambers-Wilson is fouled inside the box. Archer is awarded a penalty kick. And as Shelby Plone lines up to take a shot, Picklesheimer guesses wrong, and Grayson's lead is cut in half in the 64th minute of play. In the 67th minute, Ouellette puts a pass inside the box, and Allison Pickett heads it in, giving Grayson the 3-1 lead, and that's how this game will end as Grayson claims the number 4 seed from the region.
Well, Will, Grayson is playoff bound with that nice win over Archer. What impressed you most about the Rams' performance in this contest?
They're an exceptional team. I think it comes down to defense at Grayson. I mean, they gave up the PK goal, but no other goals in regulation. They really have an excellent group back there in the back. That's kind of been their calling card the last several seasons. They've been really stout on the defensive side, and that's been able to keep them in a lot of games, both in the regular season and in the playoffs.
Well, you talk about that defense, Will. Is that defense good enough to get a win on the road at North Gwinnett? A tough playoff matchup there in the first round.
I think it can be. I think Grayson's really put a test in the North these last few seasons. They've had some playoff battles the last few years that have been very close, and because of that defense, I think it's going to be close again. But I think when it comes down to it, North's got the playoff experience edge, and I think they'll pull off a close win.
Well, the Collinsville girls will be battle-tested headed into the state playoffs after competing in Region 7 5A all season long, and then ending the regular season against the #1 team in Class 5A. Nathan Shutter has the call.
Collinsville Lady Eagles taking on top-ranked Milton in the season finale. Collinsville with an early opportunity. Lauren Mitchell is one-on-one with the keeper, but Emily Wangenheim comes up with a huge save for Milton, and the defense is able to clear it from danger. Collinsville with a free kick. Amanda Broomer with a long ball forward. Mariah Dickey chases it down and gets a shot off, but Wangenheim handles it with ease. Milton with some nice defense. Callie O'Connor comes up with a steal and unleashes a long shot on target, but Hala Jabreen makes the stop. Back the other way we go. Margaret Broomer will take the free kick for Collinsville, but Wangenheim has no trouble with this one, and we head to the break with a scoreless tie. Second half, Callie O'Connor with a shot off the bounce, but Jabreen is there to keep the game scoreless. More pressure from Milton as Nora El Shami turns and fires one on target, but once again, Jabreen is there to make an easy save. Milton defense trying to clear the ball from danger, but the ball comes right to Margaret Broomer, and she takes a shot from long range, but her effort sails wide right of the net. The visitors will break through in the 61st minute. Callie O'Connor centers the ball for Caitlin O'Connor, and her shot hits off the crossbar and gets deflected into the net for the goal, and Milton takes a 1-0 advantage. Collinsville needs a goal to force overtime. Paige Hoover charging down the right side. She gets a shot off, but the ball goes wide of the target. Then Margaret Broomer sends the corner kick into the box. The ball is batted into the air. Hoover gets a head on it, but Wangenheim is able to make the save, and Milton holds on to defeat Collinsville by a final of 1-0.
Well, we said in the opening here, Will, that obviously 7-5A is a powerhouse. I think you saw it there with the way they competed against Milton. What do you think about Collinsville? You think they're a very dangerous team in the playoffs.
I think so. I mean, Milton's obviously a state title favorite there. On paper, the team that everybody says is going to have a really good chance to win it all, and they really got a test from Collinsville. Kind of a little bit of a fluky goal that Collinsville gave up. Otherwise, fought tooth and nail with Milton. I think Collinsville is a team that really people expected a lot of, and maybe the record's not what you think it should be at this point, but the talent level's there, and I think they can play with anybody in the state, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a run at state.
Time now to recap other girls soccer action from this past week. It's brought to you by Breda Pest Management, and we begin with the GAC Lady Spartans.
Yeah, they have all the tools to win the state championship this year. We've talked about that all season, but really took it to Lovett. I mean, you don't see a Lovett team lose 7-0 in soccer very often, so really an impressive victory. GAC has a lot of explosive firepower on offense and definitely can play some defense over there too. So really, they lost to Bletson Trinity head-to-head. I think it's going to come down to those two teams for the state championship.
Then we move over to Buford. We talked about how the boys weren't able to get into the playoffs. That's not the case with the girls.
Yeah, they put together a great season. They play in a very tough, much like their boys team, play in a very tough region there, and it's tough just to make the playoffs out of there. So for them to make it as a number 3 seed out of 6AA, it's very impressive. That says a lot. I think they'll be able to compete with whoever they play in the playoffs as well.
And finally, we'll talk a little bit about Wesleyan. They had a nice win over Pinecrest Academy.
Yeah, they fought their way into the play-in game. Also going to be a playoff team there over like the boys team, but really have a lot of seniors on this group and a lot of leadership, and I think that's really helped them to get to where they wanted to be this season, and that's in the playoffs. And I think now that they're there, I look for them to maybe sneak out a win in the first game and maybe keep going on a run.
I want to go back and talk to you a little bit about the Class AA teams, a little combo question. First, GAC. Who do you maybe think that their biggest opponent will be, or toughest opponent will be?
I think it's going to come down to GAC and Blessed Trinity. I think that's really the only team in that classification that's going to be able to hang with GAC. If GAC puts all their talent together and plays like they should, and so far they have this season, they're very focused on winning their first state championship. So I really look at the Spartans to be the favorite in my eyes.
And then finally, Buford. How do you think? How far do you think they can go in the tourney?
It's going to be tough for Buford to knock off some of the top-level teams, but I think they're not going to be overmatched by anybody they play. They're going to play close matches throughout the playoffs, and I think they can probably get through a few rounds and definitely make some noise.
Time now for Will's World. We put 60 seconds on the clock, and we get into the mind of our very own Will Hammock, and it's brought to you by Nexstar Communications.
Yeah, the baseball season got off to a slow start for the Broncos over at Brookwood, but they've really been turning it on here later in the season. They've got a great run here going late in the season. It gives them a lot of momentum going into their first-round matchup with North. I think it's going to be an interesting series. Certainly Region 7's loaded, but Brookwood showed that Region 8's pretty good in baseball too. They play with the defending state champions over there. And speaking of the defending state champions, Matt Olson's an excellent player for them, and much like over at Brookwood, Lucas Sims, also an excellent ball player. Those guys are going to be very high picks in the MLB draft. Particularly Sims, I've heard lately, going to be looking like maybe a first-round pick. So it'll be exciting to watch the MLB draft this year. Anytime the Gwinnett guys go so high, it's very exciting to see. Now, last thing I want to talk about, a defender over at Buford, an excellent cornerback, Ryan Dillard. He switched his commitment on signing day. He said he was going to Yale, and all set to go there, and he changed his mind to go to a football powerhouse out at Southern Cal. He's going to be a preferred walk-on out there at USC, hopefully earn his way into a scholarship eventually. He's a fast, athletic kid that maybe didn't get a lot of higher interest because he's a little bit of a shorter guy, but definitely a lot of athletic skills for him.
Well, our thanks go out to Nexstar Communications for sponsoring Will's World. And we'll talk a little bit about baseball. You talked about how interesting it could be to see those possible high draft choices. Let's talk about baseball real quick and how it's been going with Parkview so far this year. Yeah,
Parkview's having a great season, and like we all expected them to. They really had to fight off two very good teams in Brookwood and Grayson that were kind of challenging for that region championship, but Parkview's loaded, just have a ton of prospects over there. And not only that, just they're a well-coached bunch, and they expect to win. Obviously, they have a state title behind them, so I look for the Panthers to be another state title favorite again this season.
Well, the baseball state playoffs get started this week, so let's recap some of those teams that are hoping to compete for a state title. It's brought to you by Britt's Home Furnishing, and we start off with the Grayson Rams, one of those teams that you said was trying to challenge Parkview.
Yeah, they had a great season, a 20-win season. They beat some very good teams. A tough loss to Brookwood, but they did bounce back to beat Burkmar 5-0. Griffin Ebel's a guy that's really been leading them on the mound. He's been getting it done. I think he's 7-1, something like that on the season. And Jarrell Dawson's a guy I like. He really sparks their offense.
And let's talk a little bit about Mill Creek. What a nice win they had over North Gwinnett, beating the Bulldogs 9-1.
Yeah, they've really been turning it on late in the season too. That's a very tough region just to make the playoffs. So if you're emerging as the #1 team out of Region 7, you know you're a pretty good baseball team, and that's been the case. Shane Seckinger and Cody Pugh have been pitching really well for these guys and really put it together. They lost a lot of talent from last year, but they're rolling right along.
We already talked a little bit about Park. You talk about, Will, a little bit the dominance. We're talking now third straight Region 8 title in a row, kind of back on a run like they used to be back in the days of Jeff Francoeur.
Yeah, they've definitely had some great runs in the history of that program, and the one they're on right now is very impressive, and it doesn't look like it's going to end this year. I think this is a team that's going to make a great run at a state championship and possibly in the future. There's a lot of good junior talent over there as well.
I think everybody would argue that Parkview is probably that top team out of Gwinnett County at the higher classifications. Who else would you think maybe can make a little bit of a run or towards a state title?
I think the two teams from their region are pretty good, Brookwood and Grayson, and then you got to look at several teams out of Region 7. It was just so tough to make the playoffs over there. But it starts with Mill Creek, the region champion over there. They're a very good team, really put it together. But really any of those teams out of Region 7 could definitely make some noise in the playoffs if they get in the right bracket.
And then finally, in those smaller classifications, anybody that jumps up at you?
Yeah, I think Buford, you got to look at the Buford Wolves. They're obviously the defending state champions. They've won a lot of baseball games, and they know how to win when it comes playoff time. And they have a great pitcher, a really ace that's going to Georgia Tech, Sam Clay, who they can lean on. So I think Buford's got state title aspirations again.
All right, we're out of time, but you can visit us online at GwinnettPrepRally.com, where we have the world famous message board and video highlights. And you can also keep up with GPR on Twitter and our Facebook fan page. Be sure to join us next week for more highlights and features on Gwinnett Prep Rally every Tuesday through Friday, right here on GCPS TV. For Will Hammock and all of us here at GPR, I'm Todd Klein. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you under the lights.
Grab some wood there, bub.